Hello, welcome to Nova Careers. I'm
Oh,
here with Scott Hansen, and I just wanted to have you kind of introduce yourself and explain what you do.
sure. Thanks for having me. Uh, Scott Hansen, I work at a company, CNH Industrial. CNH is Case New Holland. They are an agriculture and construction vehicle manufacturer. So they build tractors and combines and bulldozers and skid steers, all of those things. And what I specifically do is I'm a senior electrical design engineer with that company. So I work in a global team of other engineers supporting all of those different types of vehicles and all of the electronics that go into them. Specifically, my role is in life cycle management. The life cycle of electronics is really from the planning, the design of a piece of electronics, through the usage in those vehicles, so any problems that might arise and troubleshooting those problems, and then through the gradual phase out of those electronics in those machines, as well as the serviceability of those electronics even after those machines stop being produced. So we might not put them in new machines anymore, but customers that have those machines out in the field or on the construction sites, et cetera, still need to make sure that those keep going for many years. As an example, one of our brand new combines that we would sell is about $1.8 million. So if you
No.
buy one of those combines, you expect it to last for many, many years. If a small piece of electronics fails, it can mean that your entire combine cannot work. So that's absolutely something that's important when we talk about life cycle, is not just the planning of it and the maintaining of it, but also the maintenance after it stops being used on new products, but our customers still have them. So that's my role.
Wow, that sounds impressive and very interesting. Because, yeah, you definitely, even in like for the common man, the car, when your car is aged out of what the industry thinks and you can no longer get those parts, it's kind of frustrating. So you make sure that those, especially those
Absolutely.
really high priced farming equipment or whatever, that they can be used for many, many years.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. There are regulations that say that you have to maintain things for a certain number of years after they last get put into a new machine. That's normally about 10 years. But again, if you spend almost $2 million on a piece of machinery, you certainly want it to last longer than even that 10-year requirement. So a lot of our machines are still out in the field 30, 40 years after we produce them, which is a testament to kind of what we do, not just in the electronics, but as a company, try to give those customers a great return on their investment. So.
well, that's awesome. So, how did you get interested in this engineering degree path?
When, in high school, and even prior to that, I was in a lot of STEM related extracurricular activities.
Mm.
So we would have groups, learning computer programming. We would have groups building, Lego robotics, things like that. And I was always interested in that. I was always interested in doing things with my hands, and building things. I was in some math teams in junior high and high school, and kind of split some of that time with some of this, sports and other extracurricular time. But I really felt that I was really good at math. I won a couple, local awards, stuff like that. So when I went to college, I actually got a scholarship because of some of my math scores, especially on my ACTs. I had a really high score in the math portion and overall. So I got a scholarship and went to school thinking that, math was something I really wanted to do.
Mhm.
After about the first year and a half of college doing math, I really started to rethink what I could do with a math degree. And rather than maybe continue to pursue a specific math major, which to me kind of led to a path of possibly teaching or something that was very math oriented, I felt like if I did that, I would lose a little bit of the designing and playing aspect that I really loved. So that's kind of when I switched my focus to engineering. That way I got to use a lot of math, a lot of science and technology, but I also got to design things, work on things, and in some cases build things And the best degree, the best engineering degree that I could think of, based on my math skill and my some of my computer skills, was electrical engineering. So that's why I pursued that electrical engineering degree. And it has led to a lot of getting to design things using my math pretty much daily, and getting to still touch and feel things. In fact, in the role that I was just talking about, very often I am analyzing physical parts. So I'm taking them to a test bench using electronic equipment to try to determine what might be wrong with a part. I'm tearing them down, so I'm getting to see the inner workings, and that's a very cool part of my job.
Man, that sounds really awesome. You touched on math and just that you were interested in math, and that kind of led to college and pursuing math. And I think a lot of people can relate to that in that, um, well, I love this subject, and now trying to figure out it's cool that you figured out the engineering could be something that incorporated the math and, like you said, hands-on, because I think we do think math, we're going to be a math teacher, or we're going to, go that path. And I think a lot of, even if you take a test, it's going to lead you down that path, an accountant or a teacher. um, I think now that that STEM is more common in schools, we do get to see that engineering part of it. But I feel like STEM was probably pretty early in its development of, and STEM being stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Is that what it is?
That's correct. Yeah.
So I feel like you were kind of probably on the cusp of STEM just kind of coming into
Mm-hmm.
schools and people knowing what that was. And um, so you kind of discovered it on your own, this engineering portion of that. So that's really cool. And it sounds like it's a cool, your job is cool, that you get to tear things apart. I know there's a lot of kids who could probably relate to that, where they take apart certain toys trying to figure out how they work and different things.
Absolutely.
So that's cool that you found that path kind of on your own.
Mm-hmm. No,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I'm very appreciative of it. Um, Unfortunately, maybe when you're really, good at something, sometimes they start to put you in charge of other people that are good at those things. So that's kind of where I am now. I actually work with a lot of other engineers that are very, very good, significantly more technical than me, and very specialized. So that means that sometimes I'll get stuck. But I said, unfortunately, it means that I get to kind of oversee some of those things, rather than actually digging into them. Um, and that's unfortunate because I would miss some of that. But I also have learned that if somebody specializes in a specific piece of electronics, yeah, I can
Hmm.
tear things down and I can say, okay, this looks like but there's people that I get to work with that I gain a significant amount of knowledge from being like, hey, can you tear this down and then work with me? And those are things that, really in my role allows me to see a failure mode on one thing that can help me think about a failure mode on another thing that same technical engineer might not be working on. So it kind of, and again, that's one of my big positives, is that what I do for work works with a lot of different people, a lot of different specialties, and
Mm.
I'm allowed to kind of pick these little nuggets of knowledge off of these different people and collect them in a way that I can help move other items in the right direction just by that knowledge. And that's a really cool thing for me, to be able to be exposed to so many different specialties, so many different, honestly, geniuses who know so much, and I can pull some of that knowledge off of and then know a little bit about it. A jack of all trades in engineering, maybe. So yeah, it's very cool.
That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, let's see. Were there any key moments or decisions that shaped the direction of your career? And have you always worked in the design roles?
Oh, so a little bit of maybe background. When I first got out of college, it was right in the middle of one of the economic crises issues. It was in 2008. And so when I left college with an electrical engineering degree. And honestly, in engineering, when I was in college, I understood that hey, there's certain degrees that are maybe more lucrative careers than others. So, yeah, you may like certain things, you may like certain subjects, but then to try to turn those into careers, you have to kind of look at what potential salaries are. Um, so when I left college, I absolutely anticipated with an electrical engineering degree
Mhm.
making a lot of money. That was
Mhm.
absolutely what I anticipated, and I got hit with a lot of reality because
Mhm.
nobody was hiring at all. There was no engineering work to be had anywhere. I applied to a bunch of different places, and eventually landed someplace where I really had to say, I want to work. I want to get some experience,
Mhm.
um, and I want to do some things. So I kind of had to lower my expectations to be able to get that experience. It turns out that was a really good thing. When I did that, I got to do a lot of design work with my hands, and I did, I think, a really good job. I was designing test equipment for some things that were being built to make sure that, we have some of my colleagues building these items and then me testing them to make sure that they worked 100% perfect before they went to a customer. So designing the test structure and then actually testing these things. Um, I think I did a really good job of that where I became a lead in kind of that quality and testing department. And I did a good enough job there, or really an excellent job there, in order to be promoted to actually becoming the manager of the entire manufacturing department. So not just the testing, but also the building, the quality, the sourcing, all of those things. And that was awesome for me to be able to move up to what was essentially the second position in that company.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, and maybe a thing that really had me turn my head, was that I stopped at that point doing any engineering. It was
Mhm.
strictly management. It was people
Mhm.
managing, and it was something that I knew I was good at. I could communicate between the different colleagues, the different areas, and I thought did a really good job of it. And obviously, the owner of the company thought I was doing a really good job, but I
Mhm.
was really missing the engineering aspect of that, the working aspect. And so that is where I started looking to jump back into more design, more engineering. So I would say that getting those promotions actually was something that switched in my head. Yes, you can keep getting these promotions. You can keep moving up a career ladder to higher pay and all of those things that go with, CEO type roles. But if you're not doing something that you like to do, you have to
Mhm.
balance those things. And so that was a big thing where I kind of switched it up and said, "Hey, I'm gonna jump to an engineering field and go back to engineering work." Now, as I said, I've kind of worked my way up in engineering again, where I'm starting to do more management, but I still
Right.
get to do day-to-day design. So I wouldn't say it's flipped 100%. Now it's probably like 60% management, 40% engineering, which I think is a good balance because I'm able to use my knowledge across these different disciplines to bring people together from a management role. I'm in a position to make significant changes, but I also get to play with things. So,
That's good. So you still keep the hands-on, a little bit of the hands-on part
yep,
that keeps you happier in what you're doing. Obviously,
absolutely. Yep,
makes it makes it more fun to get up in the morning and go to work when you enjoy what you're doing.
absolutely.
What would you say to someone who feels like they're not in the right role?
It's scary. It's scary to think about changing careers. It really is. But it's a little bit like a band-aid in that thought, right? You have to take the leap. Yes, there's security. Yes, there's safety. But life is long, or at least it's hopefully long.
Yeah.
And if you're stuck doing something for, you think of it 20, 30, 40 years,
Mhm.
and you don't like it, honestly, it'll reduce your life. It'll reduce your overall what you get out of life. So it's better to kind of rip the band-aid off and go, and think about what you can do that will make you happy. I do want to maybe give a little bit of warning though. You still have to pay bills, so you got to try to
Right.
jump to something that maybe you can do, but also that has still those opportunities for you to grow and develop and cover your needs and needs of your family, et cetera. So I was
Right.
lucky enough to find something kind of equivalent, maybe another ground floor thing, but I also knew that my work ethic and the things that I wanted to do, I could work my way up in that other role too. So
Right.
you get in what you take out, or you take out what you get in.
Um, yeah, and I think what you said, um, okay, this thought went away. Well, the rip it off like a band-aid. It's kind of the risk. Like you have to, not saying jump ship, but you can always put feelers out there and start looking around and see if there's something else that will be a better fit for you. So, I kind of like that too, that you switched, went from one company to another company. Just because you graduate with a certain degree doesn't mean that the first job that you get is going to be the one that you stick with or whatever. So, that's
Hmm.
cool to see that you took that risk and you found something that you enjoyed more, even though that first company, I know you feel appreciative to them for the chance that you
Absolutely.
got, especially in that economic time of the world. So, yeah.
Hmm. I,
Um,
I want to maybe add one more thing to that.
mhm,
When I left this company to pursue some of the engineering stuff, I actually got a role with a contract engineering company. So contract engineering company is a company that really um, employs multiple engineers for multiple disciplines, and they kind of outsource them to different companies. So company A needs a mechanical engineer. Okay, we have a mechanical engineer. You pay us a contract fee and we will have them do work for you. We pay them their salary from our companies. And that's what I did. Sometimes those are really good roles, and I know a lot of colleagues at that contract engineering company that have been there for decades, and they
mm,
really like that type of role because there's contracts with companies that need support. So you might have a 6-month contract to work for company A, supporting them on a project. And then that contract ends. Then you have a 6-month contract to support company B. The whole time you're employed, you have benefits from the main engineering contract company. But you get to take on these different roles, and really it's a changing thing. Sometimes you can have a 2-year contract, sometimes you can have a 3-month contract, and there's a number of engineers who absolutely love the variety that goes into that. What I did was the company A that I now work with. I performed well enough that they said, "Listen, we'd like to offer you a full-time position." And I could have
mm,
stayed with the contract engineering company and continued to kind of do these different types of tasks. But I
right.
already liked what was doing, and that's something that also happens quite often. So there's this contract engineering company that gives the engineers a chance to kind of experience these things. So it's almost like paid on the job training for engineers, right? You can do this and you say, hey man, I really like that. And the managers of those roles can say, hey, we really like what you're doing. You helped us a lot. We'd like to just bring you into this company full time. And you can of course say, no, I want to try something else. I didn't like that. And it kind of gives you a little bit of a safety net with that company that can, outsource you to other groups. Um, but if you join an actual company, then it's kind of a guaranteed. And so that's what I did. But it's also another path that a lot of engineers, and there's other types of contract work, allows you to kind of grow and see these different things and really understand what you like. So if there's any opportunity to get into something like that, after school, I would say absolutely try to take on an opportunity. It's a little bit strange to say, hey, this contract's going to run up in 6 months. What am I going to do after that? But a lot of those companies are very good at making sure that their people have something lined up, if they aren't, moving, and they're okay. They have engineers rotate in and out, depending on that. So something that I absolutely think is a good thing that I did, and I'm very happy that I got a chance to do it because it let me see a couple things, some very small projects with that company, and then this major project that then allowed me to get this full time works.
That's cool. I do like what you said about it being kind of a you didn't say hands-on work. What'd you
A
say?
paid
Like,
learning
yeah,
experience.
yes.
Yeah.
There you go. Um, yeah, that's kind of cool because, like you said, you do get to experience a bunch of different things then. Um, so that's cool. That's good advice.
Hmm.
Get in with one of those and check it out. So, um, now remind me of the name of the company you work for.
CNH, Case New Holland Industrial. So
Okay.
it's really two companies merged together. Case, a lot of years building tractors and machinery, and the same with New Holland. And those are still our two. main agriculture companies. We have New Holland Agricultural Equipment, and we actually have CIH, Case International Harvester
Yeah.
Agricultural Equipment. So Case International Harvester and New Holland are our agriculture equipment, and then we have Case Construction and New Holland Construction are two, and so all of those are all under this one big CNH umbrella.
All right. So, do you work just in the United States with people, or do you work globally? How does that work?
So where I am, we have a manufacturing plant that produces ag and construction equipment. So the engineers specifically for those machines produced at this plant work here. There are some, spattered throughout other locations, but the majority of them work right in the plant. So I get to see those guys when I'm in the office, guys and gals. When I'm in the office, I get an opportunity to go down to the manufacturing line and see how some of these things are being installed, put together,
Mm.
troubles that we may see. And then we also have a validation area where these machines are put to their paces. So they're driven around bump tracks, they're put in cold chambers, enormous cold chambers that can fit, like an entire combine in them, things like that. However, that's just two types of equipment that are produced here. We have a number of other plants in the United States, as well as a number of other plants in the globe. Because I work in central electronics, I get to work on electronics for every machine that we build at CNH, which means overwhelmingly, I would say probably only 40% of my time maybe is spent talking to people or interacting with people in the United States. About 40%. I would say another 30% is maybe with people in Europe, and then another 30% is between South America and India teams. Most mornings I start out talking with the India team because they are a number of hours ahead of us, something like 12 hours ahead of us or something like that. And then I transition to talking to the European team because they're about 7 hours ahead of us. And then I transition in the afternoons to kind of talking with the North American and South American teams. So I do get to work with people globally. We have, plants in China and India and all over Europe and Brazil and Argentina and all over North America, Canada. So it's definitely a global job, and it's very cool because I get to speak and talk and interact with people from all different cultures and living conditions and requirements that they have for their machinery, things like that. And it really helps me see a world view again, which I can take between these different problems, et cetera.
That's cool. Are there challenges working with people globally?
One of my biggest challenges, I think, is the time zones. That's definitely a really big one. So again, when you're working with somebody, as an example, in India, if it's 7 a.m. for me, it's 6:30 p.m. for them.
Mm.
So either I have to get up extremely early to talk with them, or they have to stay on extremely late, and that's definitely hard because you don't want to have somebody staying up late, being taken away from their family to discuss with you. I also don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. to discuss. So we kind of have to find a balance where we try to work together. Usually that means that, there's a little bit of give and take, but it also means that we have to be very collaborative. So we have shared files, we have shared repositories, we have documents that multiple people are in at the same time, adding notes, adding actions, adding updates. So it really forces that collaborative nature because I can't just have a conversation with that person. I can't just go to a whiteboard and write things out. We have to use a virtual whiteboard and I write a couple things and then we wait a couple hours for somebody else to put some things on there. And so that's a little bit difficult. But it also, I think, kind of slows down rash decisions sometimes. And a lot of times we need to make very quick decisions, but sometimes a decision that's made, if you have another day to think about it, you say, okay, there's a little tweak I can do there to make it better. So that's one of the big challenges with global company. One of the other ones is that we have a lot of stakeholders for any decision that's made.
Mm.
I from engineering might have an idea and my my local purchasing person who's in charge of contracts and negotiations for pricing might say, yeah, this makes sense, but somebody else who's going to be affected in Europe might say, no, that's not part of our strategy.
Mm.
So the fact that we don't have just a local team that you can go and sit and say, hey, let's have a lunch discussion over this and work these things out. You might
Right.
come to that decision for one vehicle team or one electronic group, but then there's these stakeholders all over the company, and you have to have an aligned company strategy with these
Mm.
people that have their own goals, their own aspirations, their own targets that they're trying to meet. And so that's also very difficult. And it really means that when you're talking about trying to implement a solution, a lot of times you think, okay, I got to make this change and it should be, snap your fingers and you have a improved part or an improved design or whatever it is. Almost anything that we do has at least a year of until you would see it actually implemented. So we're talking about testing, design, approvals, purchase orders. All of those things have to happen. Releases, pull into vehicle bombs, and then you finally see it happen. And that's a
Mhm.
little tough because when you're doing something in a small company, you can really work fast. But when you're doing it in a
Right.
big company, you have to get a lot of stakeholders, and you have to move, which is why this collaborative stuff and the documentation is super important as well. You have to really cross your T's and dot your I's to make sure that anybody who looks at any of these proposals, it makes sense to them. And that's one reason that I also like my job. Is part of my job is to bring down or commonize what
Mm.
engineering is thinking. So math, technical, all of those things, that's really not everybody's strong suit. So to be able to take these things that we know are technically sound and make them business sound
Mm.
is something that I also really enjoy about my job. Bringing it down to kind of a common placeholder that any of these different groups can look at and say, "Yeah, that makes sense. You have everything here that leads us to want to buy into this idea." So there's a lot of difficulties, but it also is very gratifying to get an entire global company, locations everywhere, different languages, to say, yes, this is a good idea. Let's move forward. So it's very cool.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be gratifying. Sounds like you're kind of a strategist or something.
It's
Trying.
probably one of my hats. Yeah, probably.
Mm. So do you work, I know you said you can go into the office or when you go into the office. So do you work from home? Do you work?
Um, so prior to COVID, everybody was in the office all the time. It was 5 days a week in the office. During COVID, they went to everybody at home. Everybody was at home for that. And my company allowed us to, get the equipment that we needed and those types of things so that we could work from home. Now, in the last couple of years, it's switched to a hybrid model. So we're supposed to be kind of the idea is to have people in the office 3 days a week and work from home 2 days a week hybrid. And those days are kind of chosen by you. So if you want to make it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and be from home Thursday, Friday, that's kind of how it works. Most of the team at a location tries to organize together. So as I said, in the location where I am, um, those team members usually try to come in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because then they're all there. They can all collaborate together. Like I said, you can go to a whiteboard and draw these things. You can go down on the line and investigate these things as a team. But right now, I'm hybrid, and everybody in the U.S. in my company is on a hybrid work model right now. Unless you need to be in it because you're part of manufacturing or something like that, where the plant's open all days. But otherwise,
Right.
all engineering and a lot of those other purchasing people, et cetera, it's a hybrid model.
Okay. Obviously, if you're going to do hands-on stuff, you got to go in to do that. So can't just do hybrid. What does your normal day look like then? Normal,
Yes.
normal.
So I would say a normal day. I kind of already described it a little bit, but a normal day usually is to get up, um, and be online on my computer, whether that's in the office or at home. Be on my computer usually by about 7 a.m. And that's to start really discussing things with the team in India and also trying to catch a little bit of the team in Europe while they still have a few more hours left of their day. So it'll be discussing with those guys, hey, what actions do we need to follow up on? What do I specifically need to do? What do you need to do? So kind of having those strategy meetings, as you said. Also, a big chunk of my day is review boards. So as I said, we have to put together these proposals, and then we have to put them in front of the different teams that are going to have to incorporate these proposals. So if I got to make a change to a piece of electronics, whether it's a light or a control unit or whatever it may be, I have to pitch that really to each of these teams. So, hey, I'm going to have this improved light instead of, some incandescent bulb. We're going to have a LED, and this is what you have to do to implement it. I have to create a summary and then put it in front of these boards. And of course, those boards will review it whether I'm there or not. But if they have
Hmm.
questions, it's better to be there. You can answer them live rather than them saying, hey, okay, we have some questions. There's nobody here to discuss it, so we have to move that out. Which is why, discussing with India and with Europe, if they have their own review boards for their own regional plants, we can make
Hmm.
sure, hey, okay, here's the review boards for today. You're going to this, you're going to this, and I'll take care of the ones in North America. I'll very often join the ones in Europe, the ones in South America, sometimes the ones that are in Asia, Middle East, etc. So having that at the start of my day kind of sets us up for the day or brings some collaboration if there was a meeting at 2 a.m. in the morning my time. Hey guys, what came out of that meeting?
Mm.
uh, Going to the review boards, making sure that we answer questions so that there's not delay in getting those buy-ins, and then in the afternoon discussing a little bit more with the vehicle team. So a lot of my day is meetings, collaborative meetings or review board meetings, and then
Hmm.
usually the last couple hours of the day is where I can get into going through some of the actions that we have follow up. Maybe this could mean investigating schematics, looking at test scenarios, or getting into those parts that I said I physically get to touch, tearing some of those down, putting those on test bench, things like that. So, kind of the last hours of the day when the other regions are asleep or eating dinner, except in North America, is a chance when it kind of quiets down for me from a global scale, and I can focus kind of on a couple of things to follow up on that are maybe more personal or my individual tasks that I want to take care of.
Yeah, that sounds like a full day.
It's a definitely full day. Yeah, it's very busy. It's very busy.
So if you start at 7, when do you usually end? Do you end earlier then? Or-
Yeah. So normally it's like 7 to 4 or 5. I try to be done for the most part relatively close to when my kids get done with school, which is really nice. And then usually on Fridays, it's kind of a quieter day. So usually done relatively early on Friday, but usually my weeks are still 45 to 50 hours. So it's usually
Oh,
10-hour days, sometimes 4 10s in a 5 hour day. But that's usually about what the weeks entail for that.
okay. Is there um, technical skills that are important that or software that you use regularly that a student should be aware of if they're interested in
I
this?
mean, yeah. So for most of engineering, there's going to be some sort of designing required, and design drafting that you will do, or at least you have to have knowledge of. So we have Creo systems that we use at CNH for our some of our drafting stuff. So getting familiar with that, a lot of that, is mechanical drafting. So, creating brackets or other structures that are needed for our machines. But also, the electronics have a mechanical housing that all of the electronics are housed in and has to mount onto the vehicle. So knowing that stuff, and then on the other side of it, the actual electrical schematics, there's some different softwares that you can use that allow you to place circuit board type components onto a board and put traces in and kind of do some virtual validation there. So there's a number of different ones that you can use, but one of my maybe biggest tools that I use a lot is honestly Wikipedia. With so much variation of all of these things that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, um, I can jump into Wikipedia where, people are vetting each other's items out and looking at things, and I can just get enough to understand a concept. And there's so many different concepts, not just in electronics, but in, like I said, mechanical engineering, or the manufacturability that we need to do in plant efficiency of building these things, that I can kind of look in it and gain enough to be able to ask questions. So there's different, of course, different softwares or different things that you can learn. But one of my biggest things is attempt to learn that stuff, but also don't be afraid to ask questions. That's one of my biggest, I think, good things about me, is that I'm not afraid to raise my hand and say, I completely don't understand this. Can somebody break this down for me? I try to break things down simple for other people, and I absolutely want to say I'm not scared to say I don't understand this. Yeah, I'm an engineer. Yes, I work on electronics, but this doesn't make any sense to me, or this isn't something I'm familiar with. And that's why we have, like I said, these other technical experts who could say, okay, yeah, okay, here's what we go through. But
Right.
also take questions away and do a little bit of your own learning. So some big things to do. Again, the things that you would learn in college, the different softwares that you would pick up in college, those are things to just keep building on.
So, what advice would you give students who are interested in engineering? Um, I know there's a bunch of different engineerings, but is there anything that you would tell
I,
them?
I, yeah, I mean, one of the things that you can, I mean, things like this, right? Doing some research where you get to maybe see what goes into people's day to days, watching videos about people's careers. This is extremely beneficial. If you're in college and you're relatively early in college or even later in college, talk to your professors. Hey, a lot of them either had experience working in the engineering field, or they are periodically advising or on engineering boards advising on things. So talk to those different professors. Talk to a professor of, mathematics if you're thinking about math. Talk to a professor, one of your, circuit course professors. Hey, tell me what you've experienced in your career, either as a professor or maybe in the field out there, doing work for some company, and get their day to days. Engineers love engineers. We really do. If somebody asks me questions like this, I want to tell people about what I'm doing. I want to tell people, hey, man, this is a really cool field. We could definitely use more people, and it doesn't have to necessarily be this or even electronics. It can be anything. If you have a passion for it, ask questions and see, hey, that sounds good, but let's see. The more you ask questions, the more you have an idea of what it might look like in the future, for a career in that field. So definitely do that, and don't be afraid, because most people in engineering fields will give you straight, honest answers, so that you don't accidentally jump into a field maybe that you don't want to be in when there's so many choices out there for engineering.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to start this is just because you hear of mechanical engineer, electrical engineer. That doesn't really mean anything to people. We don't really know what that means, and I'm sure even in electrical engineering, there's such a variety of jobs.
Hmm.
So just to break that down, and I think you also said, talk to your professors, and they know people. They know people who've gone on before you and what they've done, so they can put you in those
Absolutely.
directions to talk to those people. And also, I'm assuming that to be an engineer, you are going to need a college degree. It's not something that you can just out of high school pick up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of those career field or one of those
Yep.
college career fields. Okay. Um, so when you would kind of transition here to maybe some lighter questions. When you were younger, is this what you saw yourself doing?
Uh, no, I mean, I think what I saw myself doing was being a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
So I think that was my number one, my first career goal, maybe. Um, One of my first jobs was, with my dad, and my brothers. We did shingling, so taking shingles off of roofs, damaged shingles, and putting new ones on, and working the angles for how to cut things, place things, doing that stuff, and really taking pride in what we were building and doing. So I think that let me have pride in doing things with my hands and wanting to do things with my hands. It was also extremely hard work. It was very long hours. So I think, that job gave me a very high appreciation for labor intensive work. It also gave me a high appreciation for doing things myself, being able to put something with my hands into play, but it also absolutely let me know that I did not want to be a manual laborer
Mhm.
forever. I wanted to use, some manual, but also try to use my head and my thinking, because that was a big part of a lot of those things, was calculating the needs and how we could be more efficient and stuff like that, so that we could roll through those things. I think when I was in high school, one of the jobs that I really wanted was being a truck driver. I thought, hey, this is, it's manual a little bit. You have to maintain your own vehicle and stuff like that. Um, but it was also a chance. I love listening to music. I love kind of getting lost in things, and I absolutely love traveling. I love seeing things when I get the chance. So that was something that I really wanted to do, but I had to kind of think, my future envisioned a family, and my thoughts were, if I'm a truck driver, I'm going to be away from home a lot. Yeah, it'd be cool to travel. Yeah, it'd be cool to kind of, get out there and see things and listen to music and be responsible for my own well-being. But it didn't have as much of a path as quickly to family life as what I was hoping to get to. With this job, now I actually have gotten a chance to travel globally.
Oh,
Um, a couple times, through the US a little bit and also globally a little bit. And it's been really cool. I still get to be with my family 99.99% of nights. But a couple times a year, I might travel to one of our other locations in the US, or maybe every couple of years outside of the US. And so it's been really cool. It's given me a chance to kind of do both. So
oh, that's
that's
awesome.
where I was, professional wrestler, truck driving, but trying to find something a little bit more easier on my body, I guess. And also that allowed me to be with my family a lot more. So,
That's cool. Yeah, and that you not the wrestling so much, but you've gotten to travel and experience a little bit of the US and the world, so that's cool.
yep.
Minus and you didn't have to do the truck driving route.
Yeah.
Um, so if a teenager is watching this right now, what's one thing that you want them to take away from our conversation today?
It's absolutely, don't be scared. I mean, when you're younger, right? You're coming out of high school or even in high school, you look at these professionals and you think, okay, do I, I just got to go through my courses. I got to pick something. I got to go.
Mhm.
But absolutely, there's so many professionals out there that I talk to every single day that are, very free, easy, casual. Yes, they still have stakeholder meetings. Yes, they still have to meet with board members, and we still do those things. But if somebody calls me up and says, "Hey, Scott, talk to me about what's going on," or I call up, the chief engineer of one of the vehicle teams who's very high up in the company, they're very easygoing and casual, just like you and I. So don't be afraid while you're getting into those things to ask questions. Hey, what is this like? What is that like? Because
Mm,
people want to tell you what their jobs are like. People want to get you interested in their items, right? Because if you're good, maybe you land in their team, and then it's a benefit to them anyway. Um, the other thing is, don't be scared of asking questions when you don't know something. So,
mm,
like I said, every day I ask somebody a question. I say, can you explain this to me better? Or can you show me this? Or like I said, I go to Wikipedia, or I go, to other learning sites, and I try to learn something because I'm not picking it up. But don't be afraid of that. Don't say, I don't want to look foolish here. I very often, I just got off a call this morning with one of my colleagues in Europe who said, you know, pardon my tiny brain, but this doesn't make sense. And we all jokingly say things like that all the time. All of us are smart people, but these aren't each of our specialties. So okay, if it's not your specialty, you don't have to do it. I'm not going to be, scared to ask those things, and I don't think anybody should be scared. We have to be a welcoming community of people working together, here locally and globally. We have to be welcoming, and that helps everybody benefit. So don't be scared. That's my number one advice.
And I liked what you said about, um, talking to people. People like to talk about themselves, which is why what I'm doing is easy because I just get to ask questions and then you guys get to talk about what you do and your jobs and stuff. So, yeah, asking questions, not being scared and, approach someone who you think has an interesting job and you might be interested in. I'm pretty sure they're going to tell you about it because
Hmm.
they like to talk about themselves. Hopefully, they're enjoying what they're doing so they don't scare you away.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
One more thing to add, I think that this is super beneficial, right? Yeah, if you want to approach somebody and ask them about their job, you first have to know who to approach, what jobs are out there. So,
Mhm.
of course, if I know I want to be an engineer, I can talk to my engineering professors. But if I think I want to be a pastry chef, I don't even know what that entails. I don't know who to, or maybe I don't even know that that's a career.
Mhm.
So things like this are also hugely beneficial to people to see, kind of these different careers and get your brain thinking, oh, that's not even something I thought of doing, or it wasn't even on any of my career paths. So that's interesting. How can I learn more about either that specific career or associated career? So I think it's hugely beneficial to have something like this and research those types of things where you get exposed to at least a glimpse into some of those career paths. Very
Right.
cool.
And this is safe, so you don't have to worry about approaching anybody at this point. You can just watch
True.
videos and then and then
Yeah,
figure out how to
absolutely.
approach. So, well, I thank you, Scott, for being on here today and the great conversation, and sharing your insights with us. Thank you so much for
Absolutely. It
being
was
here.
my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful, like you said. I love talking about myself. So most precious do. So
Well,
it was very cool. Very cool.
yourself
Thank you.
and what you're doing because you can see that you enjoy what
Absolutely.
you're doing. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Cool. Thank you.